Hi, my name's Rob Ryder, speaking out of Cornwall, West Cornwall. This video, I just probably going to be an unpopular video again, as some of my videos are, because you have to challenge people's beliefs, and especially in you could say the alternative research world, whatever you want to call it. There are people saying there's a plan to lower the standards of people in the living standards of people in the West to equalize everything, and that's part of the global system, socialist, communist system, whatever you want to call it, the New World Order, and it will be to equalize the wealth in the world, and that means lowering the standards of the West. Now, a lot of people see that as an attack on the West. I will actually say there should be a lowering of standards in the West, because the whole of Western society has been built basically on slavery. Now, you get a lot of the Western, the woke leftist style people saying a similar thing, but obviously they misinterpret history. They don't really have a full understanding. I mean, as regards the British Empire, there was never a British Empire as we think, really. It was a City of London empire. And then you have to go, well, who's running that and who's behind that? It's nothing to do with the average British person. Yeah, and this is where obviously white privilege comes from. I mean, I'm from a council estate in Manchester. A lot of areas of Manchester and Liverpool were had a lot of Irish immigrants. The slave triangle itself Manchester was a big part of it. Lancashire, all the cotton industry, the textile industry. Slaves come from Africa. The cotton was grown in America, shipped over to Manchester, and that was the slave triangle we were taught about in school in Manchester. And so obviously 30%, maybe not numerically, but a third of that trade system, slave system, was white people where I'm from, my ancestors, in the tenements of Manchester. Yeah, so whereas you get these woke people saying, oh, British people, white people have basically been part of this colonialism, slavery around the world. It's nothing to do with me and my ancestors, nothing at all. We were part of it. Yeah, as my previous video states, this goes beyond nations. And there's an interesting quote. This is my book, Debt Slavery. So this was a book that really helped me along my way, that I was given to somebody because I've lived in Latin America. And somebody was told me to read this book. It's called Las Venas Abiertas de Latina America, or America Latino, which in English translates as The Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano. So as I write here, the whole book is a well-written history of Latin America after the European invasion, and the masses of details from the time of the conquest right up to the modern day, and well worth a read. The book is known as the Bible of Latin American history. The whole book, though, can be summed up in one quote. The Spanish had the cow, but it was the others who drank the milk. Those others turned out to be the international bankers and corporations. Slavery had not been abolished. It had been renamed and rebranded, and it was now under the guise of free trade. So that's how the British never, City of London, should we say, because it was a City of London empire. And then again, what's behind that? Secret societies, international banks, corporations, whatever. It was all about rebranding slavery. So come to the main point again now. We talk about the wealth of the West was built on our hard work. Well, to an extent, yeah, to an extent. But it was also based on exploitation. Always has been. Latin America, parts of Asia, Africa have always been areas to be used and abused. You keep their currency devalued, you keep your currency at a high value, and you exploit these people. That's it. So all our wealth was built on exploitation. All the higher standard of living, it's built on exploitation. Now, I don't think any side who's on which side, the left, right, whatever, is going to like this. The so-called political right aren't going to like this because we're proud and we're British and blah, blah, blah. And the left aren't going to like this because it's a lot deeper than they're talking about. But the truth is, the wealth has been built on exploitation, and it still has been. Africa is just there to be exploited. Latin America was. Colonialism was always about corporatization, free trade agreements, the ability for a company in one country to go into another country and buy up and trade. It's all about exploitation. So when the control system is talking about lowering standards in the West, well, they've got another motive for that. But actually, I'm not saying we should lower standards in the West, but it should be a fair playing field. Everything should be, we should be have moral ways of doing business, and it's not. And you look at the West now, all the manufacturing's gone out, which was part giving us the wealth. Technology is a great role to play in wealth creation because the West, so-called West, has the technology. The developing countries are given the technology, should we say, but they don't have it for themselves to use it for themselves, their own benefit, because they're there to be exploited. And now we've given our manufacturing to China, sent it away so we can get slave labor. And this is where the control of monetary systems comes in, where you can devalue one currency to get slave labor. You push your currency up so you can buy things cheap and controlled. But again, go back to the previous video. This is all beyond nations. It's all going beyond nations. These are corporate banking institutions, something darker behind that, that they're not interested in the nations. These are the people to be used and abused. Everyone's got we're all being used and abused, which is what the woke left don't like. The right side of politics don't like the fact that I'm saying, our wealth was built on exploitation. It was. If how on earth now you look at our country, the UK, the unemployment, where's the manufacturing gone? It's heavily relying on the finance industry, service industry. City of London brings in a lot of wealth. Where's our wealth coming from? It's always exploitation. All I'm saying is, morally, there should be a lowering of wealth because we want an equal playing field for everyone. So the point of this video is when people are saying, oh yeah, the global elite, the new world order, trying to lower and equalize wealth around the world. Well, really, shouldn't that be happening anyway? Yeah. There's attack on the Western wealth. Well, yeah, if it's been based on exploitation. Yeah. So I think people have to have a more balanced view. Again, the right side of politics and the left are kind of two extremes, and no one's actually looking in the middle. And again, you'd have to go back to the previous video. These people who really run the show are beyond nations, and everybody's there to be exploited. So while people are complaining about lowering living standards, just think about it for a moment. If so many people are unemployed, if your manufacturing's gone, where do you expect the wealth to go? How would you not expect your standard of living to drop? If we get rid of exploitation, Britain would be finished. The Western structure would be finished if we get rid of exploitation. The whole world runs on exploitation. The people in this freedom movement, or whatever you want to call it, we're supposed to be above all that. But there's a lot of people who are on kind of the majority probably who are still in this political game, left, right, especially, the freedom movement's being pushed towards the right and the left the enemy. It's all nonsense. As long as they can keep you in one side, it doesn't really matter. It goes beyond that. Surely, if this is about a freedom movement for everyone, you want a morally run economy where nobody's being exploited. So rather than complain about the attack on the West, which you do get, we're going to lower the standard of living, just think, what has the wealth in the West been built on anyway? It has been built on exploitation. Now, again, what the left side of politics don't like is the fact that I'm saying it's not the British people, the American people, the Western people. It's not them. It's the corporations and the banking system that is beyond all nations that have created this exploitation and inequality. I certainly don't feel guilt about it. Maybe I've benefited in some way in my society, but my ancestors were part of the slave trade. So you've always got to get a balanced view. And I feel that in the alternative, the view is tilting towards, oh, they plan to lower the standards of living in the West without actually dealing with the fact that it's been built on exploitation. And so the point of this video, again, it's probably not going to be popular, but to get a more balanced view. Surely we want a moral. Every country has resources that they should be able to own themselves, because part of the solution that I put in the book is that if you are going to have a nation that's supposed to, in theory, serve the people, then the land and the resources of that nation should belong to the people. They shouldn't be corporatized, privatized, certainly not to corporate entities from other countries. You know, I'm not sure who does the rubbish in our area now, but I think not long ago it was a French company, or you got a German company doing this. What on earth is that about? Yeah, that's about the corporatization of the whole world. And this is how it works. That, you know, I'm not a socialist, but you have to nationalize your resources. If you're not going to nationalize your resources, you don't have the right to say to people you are part of this society, because you're not. You're not a part of a society when the whole of the wealth of the society has been sold off. So I'm not a socialist. I believe in a free market. People should trade and create their own businesses, and you know, a credit-based money system could do that. But the foundation has to be the people themselves run, own, and maintain the infrastructure and the resources. Yeah, and this is what, again, different side of politics disagree. What happened? Socialism didn't fail in Venezuela. It failed in Cuba and continues to fail because it's stuck in an ideology that doesn't allow free enterprise. It's an extreme version of socialism. Was it socialism in Venezuela? I was in Venezuela just before, Chavez completely took over. Everyone had their own businesses. The war there was about who controls the oil. So socialism, and you get this thing now, socialism failed, the poverty in Venezuela. Well, it wasn't socialism that failed. It was this war about who owns the oil. Chavez wanted it for the people. When I was there, you could get, I think it was about 5-10 cents a litre or whatever it was. But we hired a car out for the day and it was ridiculous, the price. It was pennies per litre, pennies. So Chavez was using the oil for the people for cheap energy and then selling it for the profit, which would then go in, fund schools, hospitals, etc., roads. The CIA went in there, oh, we don't want that. So they wanted the private people, bankers, corporations, oil people, to go in and take back control. That's what it was about. Socialism doesn't fail. It wasn't even given a chance. And again, I'm not a socialist. I don't believe in that system. But what I'm saying is, people say, oh, that's the result of socialism. No, it wasn't. It was a result of a war about who controls the oil. Yeah. If they're going to be forced to live in a society, anyone who's born in Venezuela, then surely that oil belongs to the people. Otherwise, why would you want to pay taxes to give away your own resources and then it be sold back to you at a ridiculous price? And I try to get a more balanced view in my solutions of how a society should be built. If I'm going to be forced to live into a society, then that land, the resources, should be for my benefit. So again, look at the banking system. the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF, World Bank, they all promote privatization. Why? Because the world has been assets stripped into private hands, public-private partnerships. So even though I'm not a socialist, all the infrastructure, all the resources should belong to the people, for the people. And then on top of that, you build, everyone should be free to do as they please, private businesses. And the resources should be used to fuel that private economy. And then everyone could be free to do as they choose. And there should be no state to bail anyone out, because everyone's got an opportunity. So this video is really just about getting people have just think about what is being said in the alternative world about lowering the wealth of the people in the West, and it's an attack on the people in the West. Yes, it is, and there's an ulterior motives behind that. But let's be honest, this extreme wealth in a lot of the world has been built on exploitation, and it continues to be built on and maintained on exploitation. The whole world is built on exploitation. One day it could be us that's being exploited, which will happen because everybody's being exploited. It's not nations exploiting other nations, because again, this goes beyond nations, way beyond nations. Anyway, that's just a bit of a balanced view. I think people need to get away from this right-left political viewpoint, because they control both of it.